I think we can start. I will just give a quick introduction about the SIG and the program we are having before leaving the floor to all the content that we have today. Um, a couple of words about IPMA ESG SIG. SIG is a special interest group. Why we have an ESG SIG? Because we know that the sustainable development is by far the most important project that we have in front of us and the most important project we had in mankind history. This is a project where money doesn't lack, where funding is there, objectives are there because we need to have a sustainable future, but there is a high risk to fail, not because of money, not because of clarity of objective, but the lack of project management competences. And the people that are involved in these kind of projects definitely need to have the right competencies to succeed. Our special interest group and all the members are all engaged in the creation of the sustainability-related project management standards, the dissemination of the competences, and also in the sharing of the best practices that we encounter in our road. In the next page, Sarah, please, just one quick topic about Net Plus. So we all understand the urgency of the situation. We understand the need to share the solutions on macro level, on meso level, and on micro level. We need in our organization, not only on a personal basis, but also on our organization, needs to reconsider and consider very deeply the impacts of ESG in the way they work. That is the core topic of the seminar today. CSRD has a dramatic impact, could have a very positive impact, but has to be managed on the way we work. Okay, so that's why we say positive impact. So we call this Net Plus. We must give a net positive contribution to society. It's not a matter of net zero. We need to give a net plus to our society. Please continue being informed, being part of this kind of event, subscribe to our special interest group, and contribute, participate to this kind of events. Sarah, please, the last slides I wanted to use is a couple of rules. The webinar is recorded and will be made available on IPMA site. Today, we decided to organize it this way. We will deliver, Daniel will deliver a presentation in 20 minutes to share about CSRD. I then will open the round table with a few questions with Gilbert, Sarah, and Daniel. And then we will, meanwhile, I will collect the Q&A that you can put in the Q&A tool on Zoom. I will manage the Q&A, and the question will be put to our speakers. Any unanswered question will have an offline follow-up. The event will be followed by a badge and 1.5 CPDs. And you will also be asked to submit a feedback regarding the webinar just after the end of the webinar. The presentation and the link will be made available in a few days because we need to allow for post-production. Okay, this was about housekeeping. I will just quickly introduce our speakers today. Sarah Bossi from Politecnico of Milan and Nexi Group. Danielle Meneghin, University of Oxford, London Business School, and the Nexi Group in Denmark. Gilbert, HU University of Applied Science of Utrecht, the Netherlands, Wittenberg University of Applied Science in the Netherlands, and University of Johannesburg in South Africa, among others, because Gilbert is our key lecturer and knowledge manager. I am just the SIG leader, so I know how to do the moderator work, and I also work for the Maire Tecnimont group. So I did my job because we have a lot of attendees now, and I will hand over to Daniel for the lecture of the introduction.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me around. This is going to be a very interesting session. CSRD under the lens of project management is something very, very crucial. So obviously, my objective today is not going through all the single details of CSRD, which is absolutely big. It's actually something that is ongoing for more than 2 years on the making, as everybody can see by the number of standards and about how it was putting together. I brought some slides for you today, which is a little bit of a guide of the key information and the key initiatives, the key changes. The first one is quite interesting. Before next year, spent 6 years in consulting, and CSRD is something that is all around the place with a lot of help to be implemented in the organization. So some of these very, very senior and important quotes from the industry of consulting about how CSRD is different than just a simple reporting. In the very beginning, the industry itself tried to push the CSRD to CFOs as another reporting requirement, which is not, right? So, and I'm going to show you a little bit in more details for you. CSRD is a reporting directive, but it's a transformation directive disguised in reporting. The reporting is the easiest part of CSRD, to be very, very honest, and we are going to see why in the next slide to kick off. So if you can go next one, Sarah, for me, please. Thank you very much. So here you see what is CSRD and why, right? So obviously, now, by coincidence, last week SEC was approved, right, in US. It's going to be a kind of a match for CSRD, but it's not. It doesn't get not even half of what CSRD is in the European Union. For example, SEC doesn't cover scope 3 and supply chain and other things that CSRD does. So the key objective of CSRD, it was to create a level playing field about sustainability across the European Union and the operations in Europe. Before CSRD, which technically is today, because CSRD only comes to effect next year for the first wave of organizations, everyone could report anyway, right? You had SASB, you have GRI, you have every kind of different standards trying to do the deal, right? Trying to create a framework that everything that would work if you would like to report on sustainability matters. That created, I think it was really good what we've been doing for the last 5 years, 6 years, I would say, but every organization reports in a way. So with CSRD, everyone is going to be reporting exactly the same way, under the same methodology, under the same terminology, under the same rules for assurance by the external auditor. So this is the first objective ever. Comes to replace the non-financial reporting. So on CSRD has clear information about how this report must go. Now it's going to be a part of the annual report of the organizations. It's not a standalone reporting anymore, which shows the relevance that the Commission wants to give to this kind of information. And it's built on 2 major blocks, let's say this way, right? So one that we are living now, which is the sector agnostic, which is the 2, let's say, informative standards, and another 10 standards that are for everybody. If you are an oil company or a paper company or a technology company, we are reporting under the same guidelines, the same disclosures, the same standards. It's predicted, I don't believe it's going to happen, to be really honest, but at least next year, I'm quite sure, and the next following years, we are going to have the subset of standards for sector specific that comes to every major sector of the economy. So, but right now we are talking about the 12 standard that are sector agnostic for absolutely everybody. And the good stuff as well, on a project point of view on the CSRD, is that every single standard, it doesn't matter if you're talking pollution or if you're talking human resources, right? On workforce, it follows the very same methodology on what to report, how to report, which basically means what an organization should do and how should do, which is policies. If you have a policy and a procedure, you need to have a target. If you have a target, you need to have like the impact of the target. If you do have this, you have action plan and performance metrics. Now, that's very, very, very interesting. So it means that for every single objective, we are going to be reporting the same way. And as I said, the key objective is like create controls to give transparency, everybody reporting the same way. And also one very, very important objective is bring methodology of risk management on ESG elements to the organizations, right? Is to embed risks that are absolutely correlated to sustainability factors on the E, on the S, on the G, to embed that to the enterprise risk management of the organizations. This is the very, very super over picture on CSRD. And we can go to the next one, which is also important, which is, okay, let's unfold this, right? There's a lot of acronyms and a lot of people says CSRS and then CSRD, and there's a flag in the middle. So this slide shows, let's say, absolutely the building blocks of like, so CSRD is the name of the directive, right? So the name of the whole directive that brings the standards that we need to follow. And they were developed, like the reporting guidelines, they were developed by a FRAG that has been one of the key institutions in Europe for long years on any kind of reporting regarding organizations. So CSRD is like the big box with 12 small boxes inside, which has the standards, and that was developed by a FRAG. Acronyms done, so how they are organized today, right? So we have 5 standards on environmental that you can see like in the right-hand side. We have 4 standards for social. We have 1 standard for government, and we will have, nobody knows exactly how many standards for each economic different sector. Could be 1, could be 2, could be 3. It depends on the sector, right? I think that very complex, not only regarding emissions, right? Remember, this is more than just pollution here, right? You can see like all the standards on the corner. I believe that sectors like mining, oil and gas, they will have maybe 1 or 2, 2 or 3 specific sector standards. I think other companies like more like financial sectors of energy, 1 or 2. So we are going to know what's going to come from the commission, right? But this is about to come. Right now, what we have is those 10 topic standards that goes from this that you can see, and 2, which is ISRS 1 and 2, that they are more like general guidelines and general disclosures about how to manage, how to master the whole implementation of CSRD, how to use and how to actually to create something out of the 1 to E1 to E5, S1 to S4, and G1. So this is like the CSRD under the microscope. And next one is, now let's talk a little bit about numbers. Okay, but what does it mean? It means that every single standard that you can see now on the left-hand side, it unfolds in a number of disclosures that you might be needing to report, that an organization might need to report. And they are split in this, let's say, 4 groups that we call narratives, monetary, semi-narratives, and data. And why I like to bring this view is, remember in the very beginning, I said 2 years ago when we started to work with CSRD, when the drafts were basically initial drafts, that was, well, this lies with the CFO, this is a reporting matter, this is numbers. But when you see this way, see, around only a quarter of the whole CSRD is about numbers and about financial like guidelines, right? The rest is actually things that you need to explain to the commission. It's not a data point necessarily. It's not only a number or like a tonnage or a KPI. It's actually how your project is going, what your policy is saying about it, right? What do you want to achieve with that? How is the progress going? And what's the pitfalls you are finding? So this is the level of information that you need to put out with CSRD, which I know is a burden. I know I've been working with this for like a couple of years now. It's really, really stressful for organizations. But the benefit on the other end is absolutely amazing. Imagine you as an investor, as a consumer, or even as an employee, you are going to be able to actually understand what is actually, this is like a ultrasound in the sustainability of the organization, right? You're going to be able to know all the values and what an organization is doing about it. So I know it's difficult in the beginning, but then it gets really easier and it gets really a good value like for everyone that is using the report. Thank you, Sarah. So CSRD, I am only bringing, we'll only focus on the approach because this is really, really interesting. And this is where on the project management point of view for the implementation, things get funny in a good way, right? Things get trickier. So CSRD brings four very, let's say, innovative approaches to sustainability and to the way that you need to put this to work. The first one is that the materiality of the organizations now, they became a double materiality with four different dimensions. So before, if you go even today, this year or last year, to any sustainability report of any organization, all you would find would be elements of materiality that is like impact to the stakeholders, impact to the organization. Now we need to assess the impacts of the organization to the world and the world to organization under a material and a financial point of view. So it's to analyze from a very huge, known, let's say, exhaustive list of 68 topics that CSRD brings. What are the elements that I might be causing an impact to the world, positive and negative? And what is happening around the world that can cause a positive and a negative financial impact or threat to my organization? It's a very good concept. I think it's a very good way to measure exactly risk and opportunities on sustainability towards and against an organization. The second one is that became the eligibility of CSRD, and I'm going to show in a few next slides, like the double materiality is what defines the reach of CSRD towards one organization. Is that exercise is going to tell you from 100% of CSRD, what is the percentage of reach that you need to comply with? It could be 100, it can be 10, 20, 50. I'll explore this a little bit more. So it's quite interesting. The third one is the value chain concept, right? It's not only anymore about your own organization, your own people, or your own impact. It's your impact and the impact of your whole value chain. And value chain evolved like from the 80s. I still like the concept of Porter in the 80s of nowadays value chain is everything between you, your organization, creating your products and put this to consumers and end users. So it brings like all your footprint, everything you touch, everything that touches you, everything that you need to worry about, and everything that you need to be worried about. And the last one is something that I spoke in the first slide, is everything now follows the same guidelines. So we will, obviously, given the different considerations, we are going to be able to compare like a company that makes car with a company that makes toothpaste. It doesn't matter. They're going to be reporting the very same way under the same terminology, and we're going to be able to understand how different operations, how different products and organization affect sustainability on the same way. And obviously, it's not only burden. There's a lot of opportunities, right? That I like to make everyone thinking about CSRD pay attention. First thing is, it's not only if you read the standards, and I'm talking about the whole 12 standards, right? That all the information that is in there, it's a manual. It's a collective. It's a collection book of best practices that you can actually use as an inspiration to change things and to implement things in organization. So ESRSs are not only asking you about things, it's suggesting how you can make things work in your organization. So it's actually the regulation became also the source that you can use in your benefits. The second thing is CSRD is going to soon enough to become mainstream, right? So I working obviously not in my current job, but working with NGOs, that's something that I do as well. There's a lot of initiatives already of transforming CSRD, summarizing, putting these in QR codes, and make everything able to just in a shelf, a supermarket or whatever, to have access to the key information of organization. So this is going to be more popular, and if you just do it right, you're going to be in a very good credit, like with your industry and your products and your clients. Risk assessment, it was always before CSRD and still today for non-European companies, it's always a challenge how to address and how to connect environmental ESG risks to your organization risk. There's a lack of data, there's lack of experience, and there's lack of models. So CSRD at least gives you a hint about how can you manage this in a very good way, and the FRAG suggests, it not imposes, a methodology that you can leverage from to generate these insights internally. And the last thing of opportunity is CSRD comes with 2 years of limited assurance, let's say, modality, right? So for 2 years after you start to disclose, your auditors, they are going to audit your sustainability report, your CSRD. But during 2 years, it's going to be a little bit easier, right? It's going to be what we call limited assurance. There's not a brilliant consensus in the market about what limited assurance means, but I've been talking to other big fours, the ones that we work with, the ones that I used to work. Everybody's aligned on a little bit on the same way. So why I'm saying this, you have kind of 2 years to make mistakes, right? You can go and try and correct and do a little bit half or something, thinking, okay, I have time to make this better. I have time to interact with the stakeholders. I have time to do benchmarking, and next year I can improve this. And then you have a second chance to do that, to get into your third report in a very, very good shape and taking advantage of this time. So this is actually very interesting to leverage from. Sarah, if you don't mind. What I brought here to you is like, again, it's a sample. It's not set in stone, but so far, according to my experience, I'm working now on my ninth implementation of CSRD for my sins, but I really like it. So this is the way that I found that is the most, let's say, lean and logical way to implement. And the first stage is strategy and assessment is when you can't do wrong, right? You can do wrong in the other ones, you're going to have time. But in the very first is when you define the scope of the SRD across your organization. Obviously, this applies more to organizations that work in groups and holdings, but it's a lot. You scope exactly which entity is going to report, how are you going to interact, let's say, parental companies and affiliates and subsidiaries. So you got this right, you have your auditors to help, and there's a lot of literature to help. So you define like the entity level. And then you go to materiality. Materiality is the exercise that is going to tell you how large CSRD is going to be to your organization, right? So how is going to be the reach. And with the materiality in place, that you are going to define your material topics inside in, inside out, and outside in, is when you start to create, okay, from what I have today, let's do a gap assessment. From what I have today, because my organization already reports GRI or SASB, it doesn't matter. How far am I from what CSRD is telling me to be, right? And then with the gap assessment, you start, okay, how do I close these gaps, right? And I brought like, there's material gaps closing and data gaps closing, right? There's going to be a lot of gaps that is about literally data, technology, workflows, but there's going to be a lot of gaps that is going to be material, right? It's going to be projects that you need to implement, projects about energy, projects about one workforce, projects about like pollution, what kind of pollution, right? Yes, the world so far today only cares and reports on emissions. CSRD brings 4 types of new like pollutions, right? So it's going to be a very, very different game. Oh, do we have a lot of information about emissions? Yeah. Do we have how are our soil pollution or of water pollution going? No idea. So it's a data challenge and it's a material challenge. These projects, as I'm going to show further, they don't need to be absolutely implemented for you to start the CSRD disclosure. Some of these projects, they are, sorry, it's true, it's going to take years to conclude, right? Like, especially when we're talking about like material topics on environment. It's not easy. It's going to require a lot of research. It's going to require new technology, investments, allocation of resources. So this is going to be something ongoing, right, on your organization for a long time past adoption of CSRD. And obviously, the steady state is about retraining the organization about why this is important, why we are doing data owners and everything that is needed, integrating with what you already have, and testing a lot before you go into the final disclosure, depending on the tools. So obviously, this is a very high-level project, but it's a very comprehensive roadmap about at least where it starts and where it ends. And so my last chapter here today is just to explain in a visual way. Okay, so you showed me before that there's 1,128 disclosures according to the last mapping by EFRAG issued last November on CSRD. Yes, I did. But not everything applies to you. And how does CSRD takes this into consideration? So I will show you the visual representation of how the materiality works. So for example, we know CSRD presents us sector agnostic and not exhaustive, at least 68 ESG topics to be considered are risk, opportunities, inside out and outside in, right? And yes, if you want to follow the best practice, if you want to have your project in a very, very organized way, you need to go one by one with your stakeholders. You need to explore. You're going to find that there's a lot of things there that you say, wow, I never thought about it, but makes a lot of sense. So yeah, so 68 topics in 3 levels. In topics, subtopics, and subtopics. Yes, the names are not too original, but it is what it is, right? So in a scenario of an organization that would touch all the material topics, that would mean that they would be eligible to 1,128 disclosures for CSRD. However, right, so as I said in topic 3, not all disclosures are going to be mandatory to you because this is dependent on your materiality exercise, right? And even after your materiality exercise, you will need to check what is not material to you is mandatory by UE law, yes or no. And if it's yes, you need to make a mention about why you are not disclosing this. So, and the last one is like, okay, so it means that my materiality is going to define everything else. Yes, I'll talk about like how it's difficult to not to do this right and how the mistakes are going to have. So I'll show you how it works. So right now we are starting, and this is a absolutely blank page on your project, right? And remember, this is stage number 1 of the project. So first thing, we go for the topics. The topics are the standards, right? And you need to identify with your organization, with your experts, with your consultants, with your project managers, from the 10 topics, what are material to me regarding the operation that I have, let's say organization-wide. So this is the first step. So Sarah, if you click once, okay, I identified with my stakeholders that these are the topics that matter to me, right? That's material to my organization. But the topics, they are really, really wide, right? So, and they carry a lot of subtopics within that some of the subtopics can be very relevant to you and some can be very far off. So then we go to the subtopics layer. All right, so from the topics that I identified, these are the subtopics that actually matter to me, right? So this is what applies to me. These are the ones that absolutely no sense to my organization. Yes, but now we have subtopics, right, to identify. Fine. So from the topics, the subtopics, I got to this is the configuration of topics, subtopics, and subtopics that apply to me. This is the outcome of your materiality assessment. And you're going to define this is what happens to us, this is the subtopics that matter to us, and this is the subtopics. And then comes the magic of the legislation on this case. This outcome, next one, Sarah, this is going to trigger from the 1,128 disclosures, which ones is going to be in your report. So this is the exercise number one that you need to do. So as you see, like imagine this is just a representation. Everything that is in blue applies to you, and you need to report on that. Everything that is in white, it doesn't apply to you. You are going to justify in your materiality assessment why those topics don't apply to you and why you are not reporting on that. That's why the materiality is important. The materiality is going to be I heard that from the source, the materiality is going to be the most important topic that the auditors are going to look. So if you want to be smart and say, you know what, if we just ignore a topic 1 or B because they are a little bit complicated, if you just decide to say, yeah, let's not think about this now, and then you lose some blues, right? You get a little bit more like easiness with CSRD. Your auditors are going to spot it, and you are not going to be granted in compliance with CSRD. So be very careful because this is the conception of the project and you can't try to cheat in the very beginning. If you go the next one, Sarah. So yeah. So I bring like some quick takeaways from what we said now. So the first thing is, if I had to say on the project point of view, what really matters, don't make any mistake. Like, and if you get this, believe me or not, that these 5 topics right, your project is going to have a very high level of success. First one, CSRD doesn't belong to one team in the organization, even the sustainability team. Like every single topic, subtopic, blue bar that you saw before belongs to one area of the organization. So to define them, make sure that you have a very comprehensive stakeholders map. These are the people, they are going to help you with the materiality, saying, make sense? No, make sense. It doesn't make sense because I am in charge of pollution and I know that we do not have water pollution because of that. You can take that word for granted, right? So you go from this. So your stakeholder map is very important because they're going to be like the little army that is going to help you to battle the materiality. And then comes the problem, right? So a second one, aligning project management practice with the regulatory requirements. The project itself is a requirement. We can't, if you really deep understand the standards and see, especially on the identification of risks or opportunities, which in other words are materiality, the CSRD gives you guidelines about how to do things, that you need to follow X, Y, Z steps on this, that you need to follow steps on that. So the way that you build this project, the interaction with stakeholders, the steps, the documentation to create, the documentation to file, is actually also subject of assurance. So When somebody says, well, let's do a light version of that, you just say, no. It doesn't work, because we are not going to be in compliance, because the way that we manage the project. Plan wisely the key milestones, because the most important ones, which are absolutely blockers in this project, usually they are going to need approval up to the board, right? They are, it's not going to be something that the executives are going to decide in like a huge meeting and everything else. And the materiality is the first step, is a major dependency and a blocker. So it happened to me more than once. Somebody asked me, like, do you know, can you give me an estimation of resources and time and, I don't know, cost for the project? And I was like, no, not to the end of the materiality, because I don't know how it's going to be our reach. Oh, so we are starting a project without know the yeah, exactly. That's unfortunately. And the execution, last one, the execution surpasses adoption. To adopt CSRD, let's be honest, is quite easy, right? You know the templates, you know where to put the information, you know how the standard gives you all the templates and how to do it. So everybody's going to adopt CSRD, right? Everybody's going to switch from SASB, from GRI, from whatever to CSRD, if you are in the first, second wave in Europe, obviously, given the legislation considerations. But this is a long tail project. You can, in CSRD, and actually this is what the Commission is expecting, you can report, I do have a project on water discharges. I do have a project on workers on the value chain, but this is going to take me years, and I'm going to keep reporting the progress, the KPIs, and the evolution of that. So you don't, it's not like a binary report, yes or no. There's a lot of maybes, there's a lot of ongoings, there's a lot of things. So the adoption is going to be the regulatory part of your project. The rest of the project keeps going with the organization non-stop for a while. And this is what I had as a summary. Now back to Max and Sarah.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And then I think, Sarah, thank you for sharing the slides. Maybe we don't need the slides so we can see each other. Daniel, I just used two words, two sentences at the beginning and at the end of your lecture. You opened this with, it is not a reporting tool, which is extremely clear to us because it is a transformation tool to achieve these objectives, these sustainability objectives that we say that are the most important project of mankind. And the second thing that I quote is that execution surpass adoption. And this is where I think come my question to Gilbert, my first question to Gilbert. Gilbert, we have seen what a CSRD project is, okay? Which is incredibly interesting. My question is also, what will CSRD mean for the projects which are not the CSRD implementation, but all the other projects, no? The development of an IT system, the building of a bridge, any of the CapEx projects or realization projects, are they impacted by what Daniel has just explained us?
Exactly. Thank you very much, Max. And hello, everybody. And I'm also very happy to see actually in our participants one of the students that I had last year actually on this topic. Hello, Rutger. Nice to see you here. And let's see, I'm not completely sharp. Now it's focusing. That's a very good point because, of course, in the whole transition that hopefully this project in organization projects will play a role. But that was not your question. Your question was how will it affect all projects? And I think we can see two levels there. And one level is perhaps a rather technical level. And that is that projects are part of these organizations that have to report. So it would be a little bit naive to assume that that does not influence the reporting that we also do from projects. It does not hit the data, the information that we need to register and record in projects, and also in the supply chain of our projects. So let's say the first level of where it hits project management is definitely reporting information and data and administration in the project, but also the procurement function in the project. Stuff we buy, contractors that we work with. Daniel talked about the different scopes. Scope 3 has to do with our value chain and also our supply chain. And of course, that also applies to project. And we have a supply chain in projects. So that hits upon that. And that applies to all projects because we are part of, in a project, we are part of an organization or we are working for an organization. And that means that they are going to ask questions. They are going to ask questions about data. But I think that might sound like an additional task, extra work, etc., for the projects. But I think there's also a positive thing. And the positive thing is that we see that organizations have issues in realizing their sustainability ambitions. You could say the alignment between strategy, strategic goals, and projects. And in between there is the project portfolio management, in which the selection and prioritization and the funding of projects is done, is a difficult topic. We do see that organizations struggle with that. And I do feel that especially the materiality analysis that organizations now, some organizations did it already, but now have to do, and the goals they will have to formulate. I think it will help project managers and projects, and also the portfolio managers, to get a better alignment of their projects through portfolio management with that strategy. Because there is a more clear strategy, is a more concrete strategy. I think the materiality metrics in my training so far, what I've done with companies and with project managers, if I ask them to look up the materiality analysis of their organizations, it's always an eye opener. They don't know, and these materiality impacts that the organization has chosen, that are the cornerstone of their policies, these impacts needs to be taken into account in all projects. Now, there's one part still missing, and that's that we need to provide methods, we need to provide tooling for project managers to be able to assess the impacts of their projects. So you could say a project sustainability impact analysis or impact assessment. And through these impact assessment, we can then, and hopefully also the sustainability experts in the organizations will play a role there, we can then look where is the project now helping certain material impacts that the organization has, where is it aligned and where is it not aligned, and thereby feeding, for example, the portfolio management with better data about the realization of strategies by projects, so impact based on the of data based on the impact of projects, so that they can make better decisions. And I think it starts with data. So having better data, and we are getting that now on the corporate level. We now need to translate it further to projects. Create also the tooling for that, but I think the materiality analysis is a fantastic tool. Gives us a lot of direction, gives us guidance on how to do that. Yeah, and then work with that. And I think perhaps on a more practical level, sometimes the stakeholder engagement that we would expect on a project level might also be helped on the fact that in the materiality assessment on the corporate level, we also have a stakeholder engagement. So there is already some stakeholder input there that we can also work with in our projects.
Okay, my microphone is open. I would like to elaborate a little bit on this point that you made, Gilbert, because when we think about the reporting in project management, typically a project manager is asked to report on progress, on budget, schedule and budget, basically, and margins if it is an active project. From what I understand, and also from your words, here I see that after the materiality, after all the analysis that each organization has to do, has to come to disclosures. That means that you have to work on narratives, work on monetary impacts, and work on data, which are not progress, milestones, or margins, or expenditures, which are pollution, water and marine resources, which are workforce, which are business conduct. And these are regulated, as Daniel said, through measurements which are common to all the organizations. Okay, so it took us more than 500 years since the invention of the balance sheet to have a reasonable clarity about EBITDA, for example, or margin and profits. Now, how can the project manager ensure alignment of the project impacts? I think using these different metrics with the CSRD principle. What are the challenge for the project managers that have to report also on topics that are completely, I think, new, still relevant, so people understand that this is relevant, but are new?
Yes, I would like to make a difference there between what needs to be done in the context of projects and what needs to be done by the project manager. So I do not expect a project manager to be the expert in how to exactly measure this emission or this pollution or whatever. Let's say all the variables and the details of that. I would expect that in an organization, the sustainability experts are advising the administration to scale up with this. I think we need because we have in organizations the financial administration, which collects a lot of data and let's say builds reports out of that. I think we see a development where that administration gets enhanced with also non-financial data because it needs to have the same quality, it needs to have the same consolidation, etc. So consolidation process. So hopefully in projects that the project organization can also rely on the expertise from the sustainability expert and also the expertise that is now being implemented in the administrations. But the project manager needs to be aware that this is happening and needs to include these things, of course, supported by an administration. Needs to include these things in progress reports and needs to be aware that the supply chain of the project and subcontractors and contractors also need to feed in to reporting those impacts. And that awareness, that needs to be there. And I think what is necessary in organizations is that we start training project managers. We start making them more aware of these mechanisms, how this works, how they connect with others in the organization, their responsibilities of also working with their supply chains on data. But thereby, we also grow the awareness. So I think that's a very positive thing. If we start training project managers in the organization, their awareness about the strategy of the organization and about the materiality analysis and the materiality impacts of the organization will develop and will grow. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity because I feel at the moment that awareness is not so high. Yes, the awareness of sustainability in broad terms, yes, but the specific strategy of the organization and also drilling that down in the project organization is quite often lacking. So I think the whole shakeup that we're getting through CSRD in terms of collecting data and reporting Yes, we need support for that. That's very clear on the technical side of that, but it will help us see things. So I think it's also a great opportunity.
Thank you very much. So it is a transformation opportunity, as Daniel was saying. And if I may switch to Sarah, and also I submit Sarah a question from Sanya. Do you have CSR reports or CSR reports to share? If in any case, if we can share after the webinar. And Sarah, you have been involved in what Daniel described. What are the key challenges? What are the barriers for implementation of CSRD requirements at project level? What is the difficult part, apart from what also already Gilbert said?
Yeah, thank you, Max, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my microphone is open. So, of course, as Daniel hinted, CSRD is a big challenge for any organization, regardless of the size, regardless of the geographical positioning in the world. But when we look at the project level, so when we look at drilling down CSRD requirement onto single projects, a huge barrier is matching basically the time frame that the two things look at. Projects are by themselves temporary; they are time bounded. However, CSRD requires us to look at long-term impacts, whether on environment or society, and these go beyond the life cycle of the project. So one of the big challenges is really being able to identify, assess, and analyze those impacts, but also measure those impacts. So as Gilbert was hinting, we need new ways of having an impact analysis for projects that account for those long-term consequences for every single project. But also, on top of measuring, there is the issue of matching the sustainability goals of the projects with the sustainability goals of the company, overall company, when the sustainability goals and sustainability strategy are either not well defined or rapidly changing. Because sustainability is, a quickly developing topic also, and especially when we look at climate science, there are new regulations, new requirements, new forms of awareness coming over. And then if my goals are not defined, or my goals as an organization are quickly changing, then cascading them onto single projects does become an issue. So that is really where we are struggling, where I've seen a lot of companies struggle. But CSRD does offer the opportunity for a bit more clarity in that. There are loads of good hints within the regulation that explain a little bit more on how to set organizational targets, and that should help then also to cascade them to single projects, I would say.
Thank you, Sarah. I have a question from Mohammed. I don't know if it is for you or for Daniel. What is the connection of CSRD with the United Nations SDG and MDG? Daniel gave a little bit of connection. Sarah, Daniel, who answers?
Daniel, if you want to take this.
Unfortunately, no connection. Like CSRD, and I think it's right. CSRD didn't, let's say, select any kind of way to go or any kind of global initiative about anything. CSRD doesn't mention the UNSCG. CSRD doesn't require you to go as TBI. So it's absolutely a regulation free to be followed, considering the disclosures and the best way in the organization. What I can tell, and I'm really honest, like I don't see on one organization real impact. I really don't see the massive value on UN Global Compacts at all. I think that if I had to value going one way or the other, CSRD covers way more bases in a way more pragmatic and with more, let's say, brutality, which is show me the result, show me the target, show me the number, and is about what you were doing and not about something that you are taking part. So unfortunately, yeah, none.
and that was very clear. I like the word brutality, which is
we need it.
Yeah, right. Which is basically what a project manager or a project must have, no, because you have to reach some targets, as you said. You set some objectives. And I come back to Sarah. I think the last questions, due to time. So, in your experience, can the CSRD impact project? Can CSRD impact the project management practices? I leverage the brutality word,
Yeah.
the connection with the,
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, there is going to need to be, there's already is the need to integrate sustainability logic within project governance. So the way projects are selected, the way projects are evaluated, the way projects are managed themselves and implemented will reflect sustainability logics, and therefore will require a change of perspective in in project management practices. Additionally, when we look at the documentation and information flows that will surround projects, they will increase, they will need to become more transparent and also be reiterated either through the parent organization, so much more clarity and much more detailed information going to the organization, but also outside. So we will have broader stakeholder analysis that will reflect ideally the materiality matrix of materiality analysis of the company, and we will need to account for broader numbers of stakeholders and assess their needs, interests, and so on and so forth. So yes, absolutely, they can. I think CSRD will impact project management practices. It's already doing that, and likely will do even more in the future.
Thank you. Again, sorry, I want to reiterate the question from Sania.
Yes.
Is there any sample of CSRD reports that we can share already?
Yeah, I can help with that. No, like, because the first wave, let's say, of CSRD starts next year, right? So it starts next first quarter regarding 2024. But there's no sample, but ASRS 2, it gives you a guidance about how the report should be. So I can check later, but I think SRS 2, I think Appendix F, it shows like how the report should be with a very easy graphic representation. So the legislation is bringing you a kind of design and is telling you how the report should be in terms of location in the management report, in the annual report, and how the chapters must be organized. But we are still up to see graphically saying, and we are still about to see the first ones coming in 1 year time, almost exactly in 1 year time, which is the end of March, right? When all the other reports are coming. So we have an idea, but there's nothing there that is CSRD configured yet. So we are like absolutely in the last time that we are seeing the non-financial statements the way that they are. And we are going to see next year under the CSRD configuration. So unfortunately, we are only with like written guidance about how to do, with some level of freedom to do not the report that we want, but like the summary and the visualization. But the configuration of the information is given by the standards, but nothing to see yet with our own eyes. Just imagining how it could be.
Thank you very much. We will see basically next year. And what we will see during this year is, I think, the huge work that you have described in selecting among the 1,128 disclosures in every organization. We will see this work. We will see the work of collecting data, the work on defining targets, etc., etc., etc. So I'm sure that all our attendees will be involved in this kind of process. Some of you will be part or leaders of this, and we definitely want to have your feedback, your inputs, in order to see how it impacts the project management community. And I would like to really thank a lot Daniel, Sarah, and Gilbert for this, and I would like to thank all the participants for the attendee, for the attendance. Thank you very much. I close with 2 minutes delay. I'm sorry for that. I wish you a great day.